So is there anything else you wanted to mention?
Um,
Only if, whatever comes to mind, and if we're done, we're done.
oh, I love the house I grew up in, but after my grandmother died, my grandfather didn't want to stay there because he had built the house for my grandmother to her specifications.
Mm-hmm.
So we moved into a very small house in Cleveland Heights. And then later on, my grandfather remarried to she was a nice woman, Louise, but she was not my grandmother,
Mm-hmm.
So, and then Grandpa died of a stroke eventually. He had a stroke and then he kind of recovered, and then he later on had another one.
Because I remember going to his funeral in like 1966, something like that.
Yeah, he died in 66.
And you moved out of the house in Euclid in 45. So he wasn't married to Louise for too long.
No.
Yeah.
But then he left for my aunt and my mother $300,000 apiece. And you realize how much money that was back then. But then Louise ended up in a convalescent home, and she had no money and no insurance, so that's where my mother's inheritance went. My mother spent her inheritance on her stepmother.
So basically, Aunt Ann and Grandma, he didn't leave it to them. He left them to Louise, and then what was left would go to Grandma and Aunt Ann.
And there wasn't anything left.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say she only got something like $10,000 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, some paltry amount by comparison.
But my mother, she's Pollyanna. Things will be better tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And she came into Hillcrest with practically no money at all, but she did just fine. Everybody liked her. Just some people here who knew her. Like Armin says, that wonderful lady.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah.
But my grandparents, they were good. I don't know, when were they married? You know?
I'd have to look again. I have the.
Well, it's not that important right now.
Yeah.
What about? Oh, we used to go to Michigan to see my aunt and uncle and the kids up there, and we used to drive, and we'd always stop at this restaurant to eat lunch, and I could go. You ate in this part of the building. Then over here, the Lake Erie was there. So it was great fun. I could watch Lake Erie, eat lunch and then go stand by the window and look at Lake Erie. But it took about 6 hours to drive to Michigan. The speed limit, boy, you were going fast if you were going 45.
Right.
So.
No highways then.
Yeah. But then I remember one time, we went to Michigan, and we stopped and ate in this little bitty place, roadside stand called McDonald's.
But that's when we were kids, right?
Yeah, I think you were around then.
Because Uncle Jim died shortly after your grandmother.
He died in 52.
Yeah.
I was pregnant with Dave.
So pretty much you stopped going. Well, you stopped going once your grandmother died, going to Michigan, right?
No, I was shipped off to Michigan in the summer to live with my aunt.
Oh.
Because there was nobody, my mother didn't want me home alone all the time.
Got it. And she was working.
Yes.
Right.
So I spent the summer with Aunt Ann.
So that's when you were on Elbon, and Grandpa Bus was already down in Michigan with Louise. Or was it?
No, when Grandpa married Louise, they bought a house in Mayfield Heights.
Mm-hmm.
One of those like tract homes,
But pretty much when you were living with your grandmother and grandfather, you just lived with them. So basically, until you were 12 or 13, you only went to Michigan if they wanted you to go to Michigan.
Yeah, yeah.
But once Grandma Jenny was gone, then you would go to Michigan in the summer. Is that
Yeah.
what you're saying?
Yeah, been most of the summer. But then when the times, there'd be times when I was home, then I'd go to Michigan, and then I'd come back and be home. But I always felt a sense of obligation to my mother. So I learned to do the wash, do the ironing, do the house cleaning, do some cooking, to take the burden off of her.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a compliment. The neighbor said I had the whitest sheets in the neighborhood hanging on the line, because of course nobody had a dryer.
Right, right.
If you saw rain coming, you ran out and took everything off the line. But to me, that was a big compliment.
Yeah.
A kid got the whitest sheets in the neighborhood.
Well, and people were always worried about shame when they hung their laundry. They don't want the neighbors to see what their laundry looks like unless it looks nice. So that's funny.
But I tried to help my mother as much as I could, because bless her heart, she worked 2 jobs for a while to keep things going.
Yeah, yeah.
But then Grandpa deeded the house on Elbon to my mother, and deeded the cottage in Michigan to my aunt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
I'll have to see if I can find those deeds somewhere.
well,
Some of the
somewhere
paper.
in the papers I don't know where, I found that there was a plot of land in Eastlake, which was being out in the no man's land when I grew up, that Grandpa had bought to put a cottage on.
In Michigan?
No, in
In Cleveland?
Cleveland on
Oh.
Lake Erie. And so I researched to see what was what, and I found it had been sold for back taxes.
That's what I was going to say. If it went, if the taxes hadn't been paid, then.
Yeah, and I didn't know anything about it, or I'd have paid the taxes to
Mhm.
keep it,
Yeah, yeah.
But it showed up in some set of papers, and
I'll have to look through.
made me try to keep track of things.
Okay, well,